Hello, everyone. Welcome to session 4. So, as we're coming from Exodus chapter 16, I believe here, a hint at the inevitable repeat of Adam and Eve's sin. So, we want to give some background context. In the far right side of the screen, or left side of the screen, in the blocks beginning with Adam and Eve, you can work through those passages yourself. I don't want to take time away from what I have to explain here by going through each of those, but essentially, we're walking through the concept of what God did when He plants a garden. He causes all the trees to grow. He tells them they're free to eat from any one tree, and then He consecrates the seventh day, rests from work, but He tells them, you are not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They're invited into His rest, but they must trust Him, and in trusting Him to define right and wrong for them, they will get to experience all the blessings of this eternal Sabbath rest. But they don't. They both look at the fruit, they partake of it, and then, of course, we know what happens from there. Well, going into the context of Exodus chapter 16, we first need to appreciate what's going on at the end of Exodus 15, because we were studying Exodus 15 last week, right? Or in our last session, and we understand that Israel has now been delivered through the Red Sea, and Moses has led them in the song by the sea. But the actual chapter ends with them being in Elim. God has led them to a place where first they try to drink the water, they realize it's bitter. Moses is commanded to throw in a stick, it becomes palatable. Then God tells him, if you will be faithful to me, if you will listen to me, if you will trust me, and you will walk in the wisdom that of the commands I'm giving you, I will not bring on you the plagues of Egypt. So then after that, he leads them to Elim, where they come to 12 springs. I think that's not coincidence by no means with respect to the 12 tribes of Israel, but I digress. And then, of course, they also experience the blessings of 70 date palm trees to feed them because he's not brought manna to them yet. So the idea is if they will trust Yahweh, blessings will flow, as if this space is its own Eden oasis out in the desert, where they have nourishing springs and food to help supply all the needs that they have. Granted, God doesn't intend to keep them there, but this is just to show them, if you trust me, even when by all external appearance, you don't see with your own eyes these 12 springs and 70 date palm trees, I will unleash blessing on you and give you everything that you need. Again, if you carefully obey the Lord, I will not inflict any illnesses upon you. The broader expanse of this passage is to say the plagues of Egypt. We have to keep that in mind. So now comes the test. The test, as we saw back over here with Adam and Eve. God sets everything up, plants the garden. They have a river to be nourished by. He brings out all the trees necessary that are filled with good food for them to provide for all of their possible needs. And he just gives them the simple command, trust me, do not eat of this tree. You can have access to all the rest of the trees. And we know what happens, right? So here, after they had come to Elim, where there were 70 date palm trees, experienced that blessing, then in Genesis chapter 16, they are complaining about food. It's only right that they tell Moses, look, we're out of our provisions. We have nothing left. And even the date palm trees that we sampled from, and maybe even took some rations from those as well to fill our pockets with, it's all gone. We've eaten everything. So God does not chastise them for this initial griping of sorts in which they have run out of provisions. God says, I'm going to rain down bread from heaven for you. So he's essentially planting trees for them, but now in the form of bread that's going to divinely and supernaturally appear every single morning when they walk out of their tents, except for the Sabbath day. So, with that being said, God also tells through Moses, tomorrow is a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. That doesn't happen immediately after they receive that first day's supply. But I give you this to say that God is also sharing here a concept that links us back to the Adam and Eve story. And with that comes additional instruction. You collect only what you need for every single day. Nothing is to survive overnight to the next day. And on the Sabbath, you are to have two portions you collected from the day before, because nothing will come on the Sabbath day. So you'll need to make sure you have enough. But what will happen any other day when you leave something behind and it turns into worms because I told you not to do that, that will not happen on the morning of Sabbath. It will be preserved. Again, divinely, for the sake of you having what you need so that you don't have to go out and collect. You get to rest. So the command that follows was, no one is to let anything remain until morning. And for 6 days you will gather it, but on the Sabbath there will be none. But notice this, and granted, these particular citations I'm giving you are a little bit out of sequence, but I did that for the sake of showing a progression of sorts. God promising, as he did at Elim, I will give you this if you will just simply trust me. And then how this provision is going to look for the remainder of their sojourn in the wilderness. I'm going to rain bread from heaven. Here's your exact instructions on how to collect it. Don't save anything until the morning, except for when you go out and collect twice as much on Fridays so that you will have enough for the Sabbath, right? But notice what happens the morning after they collect from the initial distribution of the manna. They did not listen to Moses, and some of them left part of it until the morning. God becomes angry with them, and he begins to question, how long will these people not trust me? And then on the seventh day, there were still some who came out of their tent together. And yet again, the same thing, God being angry, as it were, with these people because they are not listening. And it's not that they are simply not listening, but it's also because of the fact that they don't trust. That's what it is, that they are lingering with some measure of suspicion here, and they're trying to hedge their bets in by holding back some of that food, thinking, well, what if some doesn't come tomorrow? If for some reason there isn't some, we are going to starve, and we don't know when it might come back again. So we'll need to make sure we have enough provision for our family. But God purposefully destroys that for the sake of showing, if you can't trust me after all that I've done to ransom you and deliver you out of Egypt, then me providing bread for you, which you did not work for, it just showed up and you went and gathered all that you needed. You did not have to ration it for yourself. Everyone had the exact amount that they needed, and there was more than enough to go around, and yet you still won't trust. There's a huge internal heart problem here, such that we can say Israel did not trust Yahweh any more than Adam and Eve did. So it's important for us to recognize this. I think we definitely need to make every effort to try to link these stories together for our students so they can understand the significance of this with the Adam and Eve story in the backdrop to show that Israel is a corporate Adam. Like the body of Christ is the church corporate, right? That we are many members that form but one body. Israel forms one body, but they are meant to be an Adam to the rest of the world in bringing to pass the fulfillment of the Abrahamic blessing and promise to bless all the nations of the earth. How are they going to do that if they're not united in the purpose of worshiping one God and doing so with complete solidarity of heart? So we need to recognize that they are setting themselves up for and committing the exact same mistakes, which means we can expect in the tension of the text the exact same kind of retribution upon them. Now, granted, it won't happen as succinctly as it did with Adam and Eve and God pushing them out of the garden, but you know eventually it's going to lead to that if they continue down this pathway. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful for you. I appreciate your time, and I will see you again in our next session.